I'm Austin Lugo.
I'm Andrew Harp.
This is With Nothing to Say.
Let's talk about Die Hard. I got to choose a movie I had seen, but you hadn't seen. And I decided to go with Die Hard 1988, directed by John McTiernan, God McTiernan. I'm not like that kind of guy that's like, oh, Die Hard, it's a Christmas movie. Da, 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 da. I really didn't know what I would have picked for this week. You know what I mean? Like something I had seen, but you hadn't. Maybe like a horror movie, but this is more fun. This is better because you've never seen it before and it's a classic. So I'm willing to pull out the Die Hard is a Christmas movie thing to get to watch it. So anyway, explain to me what Die Hard is about briefly, if you'd like.
So the debate is over, Andrew. Die Hard is very clearly a Christmas movie. I don't understand why people don't think it's a Christmas movie because it all takes place like on a fucking Christmas party and they're playing Christmas music throughout it and there's all these references to like Santa Claus and fucking Christmas.
Yeah.
It's a Christmas movie. Like it's not
even in the score, like it's great. Yeah.
it's a Christmas movie. It's just it is. And if you don't think it's a Christmas movie, you're wrong.
It's just an action movie.
Yeah, it's an action Christmas movie, and that's fine.
No, I agree.
But Bruce Willis, he and his wife are estranged. He's a New York cop, and his wife moved to LA because she got some fancy new job. And he's like, I can't just leave my beat. I gotta beat up the criminals and be a cop and do cop things. But he goes to the holiday party to win her back, or for some reason.
There's like estranged. They're not divorced.
Yes. Yeah, sort of estranged sort of thing. And he's at this Christmas party. He's trying to win her back. And thieves, terrorists, whatever you want to call them, lock down the building and are trying to steal like $640 million or bonds or something. And they take everyone hostage except John McClane, who gets away and he picks them off one by one. And the police are incompetent and the FBI are incompetent. And John McClane is the only one who has any idea what he's doing. And it's great and has Alan Rickman in it, which is just perfect. It's just...
He's like the greatest actor ever.
I mean, he's great. It's chef's kiss. Truly, chef's kiss.
Yeah, John McClane, he's the rogue cop who, he's the rogue cop who's ready to do anything while he's actually doing something while everyone else sucks. I just love how like everyone sucks. Like everyone who like tries to like alleviate the situation beside McClane, like they fail miserably every single time. Deservedly so in some circumstances, because like especially like the FBI agents at the end, it's like, oh yeah, that's good that I'm glad that they weren't able to do what they wanted, because that would have like ended up really bad. But I guess like before we get into like the bulk of the movie, what do you think it is about Die Hard that like for some reason has like, I don't know, maintained like this reputation as one of like the greatest action movies ever? Like what do you think it is now that you've watched it?
I don't know. I mean, obviously there's kind of the factor of just having gotten lucky with kind of just a really great cast. I mean, not only Alan Rickman, but, whatever you want to say about Bruce Willis, he is a great action star and there is a certain charm to him. And I think if there's anything that makes this action movie different than other action movies, and I would argue different from the other Die Hards, although I've never seen another Die Hard in full. I have seen snippets and moments of the other Die Hards, and I think what the other Die Hards are missing that this one has is, at the end of the day, it's really just a story about a man trying to save his marriage with his wife. And like all of the actions, all of the fighting, all of the shooting, I think the reason this one works is it's less concerned about the action itself and more about telling a good story, which, all great films are good at doing. But I think it's often very easy for an action film to be so obsessed with having, the big explosions, the, fucking shootouts and those kind of things that they kind of miss. Because honestly, like, if you look at the actual shootout scenes or like the quote unquote action scenes, they're really nothing spectacular about them. I mean, they're great and they're fun, but like, relative to action films that came out at the time or, since or before, there's nothing uniquely particular about them. I think there's just something incredibly charming about Bruce Willis, and especially, I guess, just that time period of kind of how Americans looked at, because it's a very American film in a way, right? There's something very American about it. And I think it just kind of hit like at the right moment. Just kind of like this very anti-terrorist,
Yeah.
it's very pro.
Yeah. We need more like hard-boiled NYPD cops like around, like putting like, putting situations into their own hands and acting with no overreach. We need more of that, definitely.
Yeah, its view on cops is not like the best in the world. Like it's definitely,
But it's like at least like unique and interesting instead of like, yeah, you know what I mean? Like I mean, like it's not, I don't agree with it, but that's just how it is. And for some reason it just like works as a movie.
yeah, it just, I don't know why, it just clicks. I mean, even like I think one of the things about it is watching the movie for the first time in 2021. Honestly, this film could have come out like a couple of years ago, and other than maybe a couple like special effects things, which I wouldn't even argue there's that many, it's pretty modern as far as the film goes. Like I think it's very ahead of films that came out in the late 80s, early 90s, and I think that's part of the reason there's something just extremely modern. Even like the little like towards the beginning when he's looking up her name and he's like typing on a
Yeah.
little computer,
Yeah.
like yeah, it feels a little sort of like
It's like an old
Jacques
television.
Tati
Yeah.
or but like even so, like it's still like a touchscreen. Like it really doesn't feel that out of place. And I think one
Mhm.
of the other reasons it works, which I didn't really know this going in, is this film is like a genuinely funny film,
It's really
and
funny.
it never feels like it's like trying to be funny though. Like it just feels like, you know what I mean? Like it doesn't feel like it's like being funny for the sake of funny. Like it's just like thoughtful kind of like writing, and just like some of the situations are kind of absurd. And I think that's the other part of it that works with this film that maybe a lot of other action films sort of fail at. Partly the humor and just partly the film itself is like it never takes itself like too seriously. I mean, it does like kind of have like a serious thing behind it,
Right.
but it's willing to address its sort of absurdity, which I think a lot of action films are so obsessed with. I mean, talk about the Marvel films, right? They're so saccharine, right, at points, and you can just feel, right, just like the studio being like very much like trying to like pull these very specific strings. And in this one, it just feels honest and real, and I think that's one of the reasons it works.
And kind of talking about that, John McClane, like I think is a very like relatable action hero. He's not like Arnold. I mean, I love Arnold. He's one of my favorites. Great actor. But he's like indestructible, kind of. You know what I mean? He's like when you see him on screen, you're just like, yeah, that is one, badass motherfucker. He's awesome. But Bruce Willis in the role of John McClane, like I like how like the movie begins with him like being kind of scared, you know what I mean? Because he's on the airplane and he's landing from New York to
Yeah.
LA to see his wife. And he's like gripping like the seats because he's like afraid of the plane, Like the movie doesn't start off with the fact that like he's a brave, awesome, like action hero. He's like kind of like a guy who has like flaws and is scared of like things like planes, you know what I mean? So I like that it kind of begins with that because then it's even more satisfying when he does like amazing and brave stuff later on because we know that he is a man who can be scared, a man who can get hurt. So it's even more awesome when he like beats the bad guys because it's he's like us, I guess, kind of because he's gets almost like irrational fear, So it's I really, really like how that begins. And the guy next to him is like, oh, when you get off the plane, like take off your shoes and like flex your feet or move your. I've never heard of that. Have you ever heard of that?
No, to like flex your feet onto like carpet, I'd never heard that in my life.
It's weird. But anyway, I like how that comes into play later on. It's also another one of those movies where everything kind of is very well resolved, even stuff that you maybe wouldn't expect.
Hmm.
One of my favorite is when she puts like the picture down. He like Alan Rickman like sees it again,
Yeah.
like where because yeah, she's kind of like in the outs with her husband because she's kind of mad at him, and she has like a picture of him, of like their family, and I think she sets it face down, right? Or maybe that might have been McClane, and then Alan Rickman later on,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
he's like looks at the picture, and because he doesn't know at this point that like his wife and John McClane are married, and so he then discovers that. I just like little stuff like that is like
Mm-hmm.
very like I said, very satisfying, very nice. I'm also a big fan of the limo driver Argyle.
Love Argyle.
He's like one of the
Yeah.
greatest. Like he should have been in the movie more. If there's one thing that's maybe missing, maybe a little bit more.
I was hoping Argyle was gonna be like the man on the outside. You know what I mean? Like he was gonna be the one like radioing him in and like talking to him. Because Argyle, like he just comes out so strong at the beginning of the movie. He's
He's
just
like the greatest character. He's so much fun.
he's so much fun. And I just you want him in like every single scene. And the fact that you kind of like lose track of him. I mean, like you kind of like touch base with him every now and then, which is always fun. But I would love to have seen just a shit ton more of Argyle. Like because what's strange about this movie, in a lot of ways, Bruce Willis a lot of the time is just like acting by himself, and I think that's part of the reason why they kind of have him talking
Yes.
to himself a lot because like
I
it's
like that stuff too about him. Yeah.
yeah, because it's like basically just like a lot of the scenes are just him. I had been under the impression, and obviously they fix this later when they bring in the LA cop, right? Because then he has someone to talk to.
Mhm.
But I had assumed that like up to that point he'd be talking to Argyle via like radio or something, and I think that's one of the few missed opportunities, which obviously they remedy eventually by just bringing the cop in. Because just when you just have like one character just like talking to themselves, which I think Bruce Willis does a great job of it. Like he genuinely feels like distress, and it doesn't feel like a monologue or anything. Like it certainly feels like something you would
Yeah.
say to yourself.
It sounds like he's trying to figure out what's going on because, like I said, he really does seem like he's
Yeah.
scared.
And again, that's kind of sort of the charm of John McClane is that he is this very unlike most action heroes. You talk about Sylvester Stallone, you talk about Arnold Schwarzenegger, really talk about any of the kind of big name action heroes of the 80s and 90s. As awesome as they are, there's sort of this invincibility that comes to them, right? Whenever there's a gunfire, they just like
Mhm.
run into it and just start
Of course, yeah.
shooting shit, which is, fun in its own right. But what's so great about John McClane is throughout the movie, he's just getting progressively more and more injured. And like it affects, right, like how he fights. It's not like he gets shot and like the next scene, he's running on that leg or whatever. Like it genuinely, like every single scene, he's getting hurt. Every single fight, like no matter if it's like the first bad guy or the last bad guy, like it's the same level of difficulty, and he's getting injured, and it's just becoming harder and harder for him. He feels like an ordinary character who just kind of stumbled into the situation, and so you kind of root for him because the odds, even though coming into this film in 2021, there's going to be like 17 other fucking diehards, like you still come into it like genuinely not knowing if Bruce Willis is going to live. Like there's this risk that the director is willing to suggest that like he might actually die. I mean, obviously he doesn't, but
Mhm.
it does feel like at any moment he could die.
Do you know that Stallone and Schwarzenegger, they turned down this role?
Really?
Yeah, because I think Bruce Willis at this point wasn't like super famous.
Yeah.
Worked out for everyone, I guess.
I mean, I could see Stallone, but like Schwarzenegger, I don't know. I couldn't see that working.
Yeah, I don't think that would work. One of those movies where it's just like everything clicked. It just makes sense. And one of the other things I really, really like about Die Hard is like the setting at the Nakatomi Plaza building.
Mm-hmm.
They do a really good job with it. I think they do as best a job as they could, kind of keeping the audience in sync with John McClane as he's navigating the building while he's like running around floor to floor, going up and down like elevator shafts and in air chutes. I just feel like that would be really difficult because like where do you even like start, or like where do you even like begin with like something like that? You know what I mean? I know it's like a combination of using like a real building in LA, I think, or maybe not even in LA. Maybe it was in like some other city.
It's probably Toronto.
I have the Wikipedia page right in front of me, so I probably could look to see. Obviously, there are some sets, especially the 30th floor office where they have their Christmas party. That's a set, I think. Like, I don't think it's like a building because the ceilings are really high. Like the ceilings are really high in the set, but it's a cool set, so it doesn't really matter. There's also like a matte painting of like the sunset there
Matte
as
painting.
well. Yeah, but
It's
it's
perpetually sunset.
I don't know how they do it. It's just like it's just a simple idea. It's a big dumb action movie terrorist thing that's happening on a 40-story building. It's super simple, but when you watch it, it makes complete sense. It just feels very like connected, and of course that has to do with John McTiernan's directing, who's amazing,
Hmm.
unbelievable. Just I don't know. I just feel there's something just kind of like indescribable about like his directing style, and also the editing, of course, as well. He's not the editor, but you know what I mean. Like that combination is
Yeah.
just it just really is conducive to like a really good action movie, and it's just kind of hard to say what it is. It's just very it's not like super fast, like it kind of takes each and every moment and creates just like one really good like short film with this moment, to get to kind of one of the first action scenes. Of course, the terrorists have arrived at Nakatomi Plaza, and Bruce Willis is like arguing with his wife, like we talked about, because he is like Los Angeles, it's filled with people I don't like or whatever, and she's like, come on, it's fine. But the terrorists arrive, and I really like the scene where the terrorists like they take over the building.
Yeah.
That's a satisfying portion. Like I like when they go into the lobby and they're like talking to each other and they shoot the guy in the head. It's like, oh my god.
I love the terror, and this is another thing that I think the reason one of the reasons that this film works so well as an action film is the terrorist thought process is so well thought out.
Yeah, it's
Like
great.
every single moment, and it is so well planned, and it's just like from the very beginning. And I think it's partly because when you watch most action movies, like the terrorists' goal is so vague, and their plans just like basically like come in, shoot some people, and just like hope for the best. And I mean, that's fine. I'm sure there are plenty of terrorists that do that. But like, if you're gonna steal, $640 million, like you're gonna
Mhm.
put some thought into it. And I love just how like every single detail is thought of like what the terrorists are gonna do, like how they're gonna kill everybody, like how they're gonna take over the positions, how they're gonna break into the safe. I mean, just and even like the whole time, like you kind of see their plan unfold because they don't tell you the plan at the beginning, which is
Yeah.
another reason it works. Like instead of just like having someone tell them the entire plan at the beginning, like you see the plan slowly unfold, and like only Alan Rickman really knows what's going on. And so like to kind of watch all of these things come together in a certain sense. I mean, at least for me, like through most of the film, part of me is kind of rooting for Alan Rickman. Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
he's great.
he's the bad guy.
Yeah, yeah.
Like he's not really a great person, but you're kind of rooting for him because he has this sort of like everything's just so well thought out. And he's not like, I mean, he's not a good person, but he's not like he doesn't really seem to be that evil of a person. I mean, I guess he's, kidnapping people and killing people. But I don't know, there's something to like almost I don't know, there's something to root for about this guy. Like you kind of want him to get away with it in a certain sense because, right, he's someone who's just like this like brilliant mastermind, and he has like thought of all these details. It's just so satisfying every time like something goes into play for him, even though like you're also rooting for John McCain to like fuck it up. Like you're kind of rooting for both. At least I am. Like
Yeah.
I'm rooting for both of them at the same time.
Yeah.
Like I want Alan Rickman to get away, but I also want John McClane to save his wife. So it's kind of like this mixed bag.
I also kind of feel the same way. I also feel like I'm rooting for Carl a little bit throughout the movie, whose brother gets killed, right? Like,
Yeah.
because he wants to kill John McClane like for a reason that kind of makes sense. You know what I mean? Like he killed like his like brother. And like he's like, I'm gonna get him. And he's like such a badass. It's like, oh man, is he I think he's really gonna get him. Like, So yeah, like the bad guys, like they're they do bad things, like they kill people, they shoot people in like the face and stuff, but they're like perfect, like they're just like the perfect, like and like I like how like all of his like henchmen are like German male models, like they all have like flowing long hair and stuff, like that's just so random, and like
Yes.
I just love it. I like the driller guy too. He's like weirdly like he's just like unexpectedly, I guess you could say, what's the word I'm thinking of? Flamboyant, sort of, I
Yeah.
guess. I like in that scene too. And I watched a little bit of like the John McTiernan commentary along with one of the producers whose name I forget, but I didn't finish it. They talk about how
Mhm.
like they're all of them are humming "Ode to Joy," the and
Yeah.
he's like because they love it, you know, like they love doing it because they're all like humming it because like everything is going well and it's awesome and stuff, and you know they love that, you know, that their plan is like in place and they're ready to do it, and you know it's all according to plan. I like that little details too, but the little details, like they're great, but they're not like there's not like too many of them that overwhelms you or anything like that either. It's still like a very simple movie that anyone can
Mhm.
enjoy. But yeah, like we talked about, McClane, he gets away and he all he is wearing an undershirt and he's not wearing any shoes because he was doing the airplane flexing thing, and so he runs away. He has a gun, I think.
Yeah, he has like a revolver or a handgun or something.
Yeah, that's all he has. But he's able to escape, and everyone is taken hostage. Hans Gruber, Alan Rickman's character, great name too, very memorable name. Like we talked about, he wants to steal $640 million from the vault in the building, and Takagi, who's the boss of McClane's wife,
Holly.
yeah, Polly, they take Takagi to try to get like access codes from him, and McClane basically sees, you know, this is kind of once again to show you that they're not fucking around, where Hans shoots Takagi in the face because he doesn't have the access codes. Even though Takagi says over and over again that he doesn't have them, he's like, you're just gonna have to kill me. And he's like, okay. And he shoots him in the face. And McClane, he sees it and he like moves around and everyone is like, oh, there's somebody in here, and they go chase after him. And you get like one of the like first like really good action scenes where like they're in that like jungle of like metal beams,
Hmm.
right? Like it's like a floor that's under construction, and like the guy with like the German bowl haircut goes after him, right?
Yeah.
That's like the first like fight.
Yeah, I love it because it has kind of this slow burn effect where at the very beginning, like the guy, because it's a machine gun against a handgun, so it's not like you can just go out and shoot him.
Yeah.
And so he's like stalking Bruce Willis. He's like turning on all these lights and he's walking towards like this middle, I don't know, fucking desk or whatever. And you assume he's gonna be there. And he's like walking around and he turns around and he's not there. And you're like, oh shit, where'd he go? And he's looking for him. And Bruce Willis, of course, gets kind of he like jumps him basically. And then he points a gun to the guy's head. And instead of just shooting him right there, like that's all he had to do. Like just kill him at that moment. And then it would just, it would be over. Like he wouldn't have
Yeah.
to go through the whole thing. Because like at the end of that fight scene, I thought that the guy was still alive because I thought like that was like Bruce Willis's whole thing was like,
Oh no, he broke. It's kind of weird. The way that he dies is a little like, okay, I guess. Like he rolls down the stairs and breaks his neck.
guess
I
so.
guess it sounded like the ADR line where he went and then he died. Okay, that's fine. Like I just like how that like I totally forgot how like short that scene is. How he
Mhm.
like kills him.
And that's also where you learn that like John McClane, because like the whole thing is the guy's like, you're not gonna shoot me. Like you're a cop. Cops don't just kill people. Like they have to follow the rules. John McClane's like, I don't follow the
Yeah,
rules.
exactly.
But you're like, fuck that.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I love it. And yeah, like you were talking about how like it's like they're like in this like jungle, right? Of like these metal beams and
Hmm.
stuff. Like it of course reminds me of another one of McTiernan's God movies, Predator, which is also about like people walking around a jungle. You know, it's kind of like the Vietnam War thing, right? Like there's even Vietnam
Hmm.
War references in this movie, of course. You know, it's like the building is like a jungle, you know, it's a man-made artificial jungle, and you know they're all kind of hunting each other, and you know I like that aspect to it. Yeah, McClane, he gets the machine gun, and of course he lets everybody know. He like, you know, sprays paint like, I have a machine gun, ho ho ho, very classic scene. And Hung Gruber of course is now aware that like there's some guy in the building and he's, you know, running around, and they're like, okay, that's okay, we won't let this, you know, mess us up, more or less. So they're like, okay. And I think more or less he is able to get a radio, McClane, and I think at first he pulls a fire alarm and that
Yeah.
doesn't work, and then he radios in. And of course and this is the first example where you get like people like, you know,
Just
like
fucking worse.
getting in his way. Like, you know what I mean? Like the dispatchers are like, this is a he's like, third terrorist in the building, you gotta come. And he's like, and the dispatchers are just like, okay.
This is emergency line only, sir.
Yeah, this is an emergency line only. This is the first scene where you get people standing in McClane's way to save the hostages. It's so funny.
Oh my god, it's so funny. It's probably one of my favorite scenes. Because John McClane, all he wants to do, like you think like he's just gonna like call in and like the cops are gonna come and it's gonna be okay. And they just keep going. This is emergency line only. And he has one of the best lines, I would argue, in all of cinema. And and he goes, "You think I'm ordering a fucking pizza?"
Yeah. He's like, it's the movie's like 30 minutes in and he's already like very upset. And he will be more upset, of course, later on. So they're like, okay, Sergeant Powell, Al Powell, who's the dad from Family Matters.
Sure is.
You need to go investigate. And he's like, okay. And he's like getting like Twinkies from the gas station, and like the meanest gas station attendant ever, by the way.
That guy hates cops.
Yeah, he just doesn't like cops. And he's just like very, very funny. But he's like, my wife's pregnant.
He's like, sure. I mean, to be fair, other than Al, every single cop in this movie who is from LA, even or the FBI, completely incompetent and total assholes. So there is that.
That's true. He's the coolest cop. But he goes to Nakatomi to investigate it, and he's just like, okay, whatever. That whole part, by the way, too, when he like goes to the building and he goes inside the building, once again, just like another incredibly directed section. It's tense, it's exciting. You don't know what's going to happen. You're like, oh, how's he going to find out? You know, like, is he going to leave? You know, just really good.
I mean, it just takes so long. And I love that, like, a lot of it's taken from, like, McClane's perspective. So he's just, like, sitting there waiting for this police officer. He's like, come on, like, just fucking call, like, backup. Like, do fucking anything. And you're just, like, sitting. And it takes so long because he's, like, walking through.
Long time.
And he's just, like, walking around. And he's just gonna like leave because he's like, oh, I don't see anything. Like this isn't. I'm not gonna spend my time, walking through a fucking empty building. But of course, McClane, he's not gonna have it.
Yeah, I think he kills some more people.
Sure does.
And then Powell is about to leave, and he's like, "There's nothing going on here. I'm leaving." And then I just love the reveal where it's like through the windshield you see like a body falling. And it lands right on his car, and he's like, "Oh god!" And he spins out of there, and like right when he's like darting away, like he's getting like machine gun fire on him. Yeah. Very exciting, very fun, and he lets everybody know that
real shit's going down.
There's something wrong with the Nakatomi building. So yeah, that's a really good. Yeah, and there's like a SWAT team arrives, and all these people arrive, and of course, once again, there's people standing in his way.
As much as I love this movie, and I love John McClane, and I love Al and Alan Rickman and Holly and so many of these characters, and as funny as the LA police are, their incompetence is almost to the point where it's absurd. Like literally, when like the sergeant gets there, like Al's like, hey, like dude,
there's a guy in there.
Like there's a guy in there, and then there's a bunch of terrorists and there's hostages, and they're like, no, there's not any hostages. Like, what? Like, okay.
They're like, we don't know if there's hostages in there.
Or like when he's like, hey, but like I saw like a body like thrown onto my car, and they're like, oh, that's just a guy who committed suicide. Like,
I know that line where that he says where he's like, oh, that must have been just a guy who jumped off the building is so absurd. It's like, what are you talking? Like, you don't like, what if it was like I guess it is like also absurd for like some guy to throw a dead body off of a building. Like that's also kind of weird. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but still, like there seems to be something extraordinary going on.
But I guess if you could argue the other side of like maybe the cops aren't entirely incompetent, along with like it is an entirely absurd situation. I guess you could argue that they're basically just trying to like justify what they're doing. Like they're following protocol and like all the things he's saying is just to like justify it, which is like very it's a very like I'm not a cop. And I'm not going to say like anything bad about the cops necessarily, but it's a very cop-ish thing to do to just like run through protocol
Of course.
and then just justify it in the future, right? To be like, "Oh no, like we had to do this." Which it feels like kind of that's what they're doing there. Like they're just justifying their shitty actions that they're already decided that they're going to take either way, like no matter the situation.
Mhm.
Like this is like the way we do it.
Yep. And of course, this leads to like the first assault, which even though they have no idea what's going on, they decide to send in a group of SWAT team guys and to go in. They get killed. Well, they get, stopped. And then they're like, let's send in an RV to go through the door. And of course, once again, they get stopped. They get like hit with a whole rocket. I love that whole scene too, where the terrorists are like, get the rocket launcher. And they're like running and stuff and yelling. And they're like trying to set it up and put it together. That's like a very satisfying scene. You know what I mean? Because it would be easy just to be like, all right, get the rocket launcher. Boom. But they like have to like put it together. I don't know. I like that. That's fun. That's like, okay, that's cool. And they blow up the RV and they're like, oh no, what the heck? And McClane is like, all right, screw this. He has like a thing of C4 and he like makes it explode and he blows up like a whole floor of the building.
That's not like, look, I'm not John McClane and I'm not a New York cop, but like that can't possibly be the best idea. Like what if, I mean, he blows up a whole floor. Like what if the whole building went down? Like they're all in that building, like, and then like all the people next to the building, like what if it crumbles and like falls into another building? It doesn't seem like the most well thought out plan, but
It's all he has. Like he doesn't have any other tools, or like he's radioing them and like nothing's getting through. Like he just needs like find a way to like get them to stop, you know what I mean? So I guess it does in the logic of the movie, it gets them all to stop.
But I mean, I guess it works. Like John McClane's like, I'm gonna blow up a floor, and then he does, and no further consequences, which is fine. I mean, it works.
Yeah, the cop gets mad. The lead cop, he gets all angry and stuff. But yeah, whatever.
Fuck that guy.
Yeah, he sucks. He's funny though. You also get the journalist guy that shows up, of course.
What an asshole that guy is.
He's in the second movie.
Is he really?
So I've seen the second and third movie actually, and they're actually like both pretty good. Like obviously they're not as like good as the first movie. The first movie is a classic, but the sequels are actually like kind of neat. But he's in the second movie. He and McClane's wife, they're like trapped more or less somewhere together.
Mm-hmm.
So they have to like interact with each other and the journalist, of course, like does some like very funny, like just insane things. He's just like a crappy. That's also the guy who plays like the EPA agent who shuts down the Ghostbusters. He has a beard in that movie though, but yeah, he's just like really good at playing like assholes in like 80s movies. I don't know.
we all gotta do our work, and that's just his job. He's the asshole.
Mm-hmm.
He does it well. He plays a really good asshole. So
he's really good. And he gets later on he gets his I think more or less the next scene is when Harry Ellis, the other asshole guy, he gets shot in the face, right?
He sure does, because he's like,
that character's really funny.
I love him. He's just so stupidly confident, which is just so, it just feels so right that he would be so confident, like just like your kind of like classic douchey Wall Street sort of kind of doing cocaine, just doing his shit. And he's like, you know what, I'm tired of sitting around and waiting for fucking John McClane, who he hates for some, I mean, I guess it seems like he wants to, like, at least to me, like he definitely wants to have sex with Holly, and Holly does not want to have sex with this man. But to be fair, it seems like this man wants to have sex with everyone because, again, just a really shitty person. And he's doing the cocaine, he's doing his shit, and he's like, you know what, I'm tired of waiting for this John McClane guy. I'm gonna fix it myself. And so he basically just walks in there and he's like, hey, I can get you John McClane, which of course he doesn't know who John McClane is, or Alan Rickman doesn't know who John McClane is at this point. And foolishly, like a fool, he just like basically tells Alan Rickman like all this information. And Alan Rickman, the brilliant genius that he is like doing all these calculations and figuring shit out.
Mhm.
And this fucking guy just spills all this shit. Of course he like doesn't, I mean, at least he doesn't say that Holly is John McClane's wife. So I mean, like,
He just says they're
they're
friends.
friends.
Yeah.
Which still stupid, but I guess slightly less stupid. And Bruce Willis is like, dude,
What are you doing?
stop. Like, stop saying that you're my friend. Like, just don't. He's gonna kill you. And he's like, nah, I work billion-dollar deals. Like, I know my shit. I don't need
I'm on cocaine. Like that's our introduction, right?
Yeah.
They walk in on him and he's doing cocaine. And yeah, they shoot him in the face because he's insolent, because McClane won't give himself up. Because I think at this point, McClane has the detonators to the C4.
Sure does.
Which they need to blow up all the C4 in the building.
Yep.
So they really need that back. That's like the one thing that they need. And yeah, like we said, they kill Ellis. And then I think more or less you get the scene where like Hans Gruber and McClane, they meet, right?
Yeah.
Which is another good scene. They're good.
I love that scene. I like going into that scene, I was a little bit confused because like, wait a minute, how do they not know who each other are? But then it takes a minute to realize that they've never met face to face. Like they've only been talking over the radio, which I love. And of course, Alan Rickman puts on an accent, which Alan Rickman, I mean, he's just so great. He can just put on any accent and just be.
He was so great.
R.I.P. man.
R.I.P. But yeah, he acts like a fumbling office guy who's like, I didn't know where I was supposed to go, and he's like, okay, here's a gun. McClane, of course, gives Hans Gruber a gun, and he's like, all right, here you go, and he's like, okay, and they kind of like walk around a little bit, and Gruber's like, actually, I'm Hans Gruber. I'm gonna shoot you.
Shoot him in the face, but alas, Bruce Willis, as always, 7 steps ahead. No bullets.
Why would I give you a loaded gun? I'm not stupid. And then like a bunch of terrorists arrive, and Alan Rickman's like, well, there you go.
There you go.
They have like a big shootout, and I think McClane, he's able to get away, but he has like glass in his feet.
I'm convinced that this whole movie, the entire movie, that like the director was sitting down one day, fucking eating his Cheerios, and he's like,
McTiernan.
Yeah, McTiernan, the one and only. And he's sitting down, he's eating his Cheerios, and he's like, I want to make a fucking movie where a guy walks on glass. And that's it. And like the whole movie just seems like built for that one scene, which I didn't know this going in. They don't actually show him walking on glass. Like I always thought, I don't know why, like in my mind, I always thought there was like a scene where like he walks on glass, but they never actually show it. Like they cut away before he ever walks on glass. But I'm convinced, like the whole movie, like every single scene is all built only so Bruce Willis could walk on glass. Because like every single moment just like turns into that. And the fact that they don't show it, it's fine. Actually, I don't really care that much. But I was genuinely surprised. Like I don't know why. Like I thought I had seen a scene where he walks on glass, and I guess it's just been parodied so many times that I just assumed that it was in Die Hard, but it's not actually in Die Hard, which is, it's a little disappointing. I'm not gonna lie.
At least he does a good job acting like it's like extremely painful and horrible and like the worst experience ever. Yeah, he's
It
like,
looks painful.
I think like at this point too, you get like the lowest point of the story where he's like talking to the detective, and the detective's like, we're on your side, you got this, you're the best, like don't listen to what people say. And they both like kind of talk, and they're like, do you got kids? And like, and then I think at this point, Powell, he like admits that he killed a kid accidentally, which is like, that's like super serious. It comes out of nowhere. It's like, whoa, really?
It reminded me a bit of that scene in Gremlins.
Of course.
Where she tells about why she hates Christmas.
Yes, of course.
Like
the classic scene.
I mean, it's not funny, but I mean, the Gremlins scene is, but this scene isn't funny, but it's just like, it gets so serious so quickly, like just so dark immediately. And it's just like, oh, that's actually really sad. Like it's not great. It's pretty, It's not great. Shooting a 13-year-old kid. And it's like, I think what makes the scene all the more awful is how modern, unfortunately, it is. And this is also before Rodney King, right? Because this came out in '88.
Yeah.
So it's just,
I mean, cops have always been,
yeah, the worst, kind of awful.
yeah, well, yeah, definitely in the second half, even if you're just looking at the second half of the 20th century, especially in like Los Angeles and stuff like that.
Not
Like,
all cops, Andrew.
yeah, definitely, yeah, especially Sergeant Al Powell, and and of course,
To just kill everyone. Yeah, no oversight.
no oversight. Anyway,
But that's when the FBI agents come, right?
yeah, the FBI agents come and they're like, "Shut down the power. I don't care what you have to do." And of course, it's playing right in Gruber's hand because once they shut off the power, that actually makes the final lock to the vault open like that because they knew that the FBI would show up and Gruber knew that they would shut down the power when they got there. So that did it. And then Gruber, what he does is that he talks to the FBI and he has basically fake demands where he's like,
yeah,
I want a helicopter and we'll be on the roof and you can pick us up and we'll go to wherever.
he wants to release all these quote unquote freedom fighters, which are bullshit. He just like read them in the Times.
Right. He's like, right. He's talking to the cop. That's
Yeah.
the first thing that he does. He talks to the cop and he's like, I want you to release all these freedom fighters. And he's just kind of making it up because he's trying to
Yeah.
buy time. And then when he's talking to the FBI, he's like, we want a
Mhm.
helicopter out of here. But of course, the FBI are like, they're like, oh, we're not going to send a helicopter to save them. We're going to send a gunship and like kill them.
We're 7 steps ahead.
We're 7 steps ahead. But of course, Gruber is another 7 steps ahead where he's going to put all the hostages on the roof and then fake his team's deaths so that they can take all the bonds and run away. So their plan was to get caught by the FBI. And then I think they're also wanting to blow up the roof too.
Yeah.
So it kills all the hostages.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't even have a chance to like save them if they realize that they're not the terrorists.
Right.
So yeah, they want to blow up the roof. So that's what they're going to do. They don't do that yet though. I think first you get like McClane and Carl's fight, which is great.
I love it.
Great fight. Carl, he's huge. He's a badass. He's got long blonde hair. Get a great fight scene in. And McClane kills Carl in just like the craziest way, but he's spoiler alert, he somehow lives. It's so funny.
Wait, really?
He hangs him by a chain.
He sure does. It's probably one of the most I mean, it's not like it's not like a lot of blood or anything, but it is a pretty intense moment where he just like wraps this metal chain around this guy's neck and then basically like suffocates him via hanging. It's pretty dark for John McClane. Like he's definitely someone that is very willing to murder anyone who gets in his way, just like full out murder. And I love how like Hans Gruber, like this whole thing, and he's right, is like, look, because at one point they like trap John McClane in like an elevator shaft. And he's like, look, just like leave him the fuck alone and like it won't fucking matter. Like that's all you have to do. Like just don't do anything and like we can just leave. But Carl is so obsessed, which I mean I guess is fair because John McClane did brutally murder his brother and then, humiliate his body. So there is that. But poor Hans Gruber, like he just had this like perfect plan, but unfortunately I guess that's why you don't pull a right Saving Private Ryan, like never fucking get people that are related to each other on the same team because it doesn't work because then they kill each other, which isn't great.
No, it's not good at all. But it makes for a really great fight scene where Carl and McClane fight each other for a while.
Sure does.
And then at this point, I think Gruber finds out that McClane and Holly are related because he sees that news report by the journalist where they go, which is crazy, where they go to like his house and they're like they're talking to the kids like, what do you want to say about your dead parents? They're both dead. They're both dead, by the way. What do you want to say about them? And Gruber is like, oh, okay, they're related. Well, that's interesting. Come with me. So he takes Holly and they like go into the vault and stuff. And she's like, I love the part where like, she's like, oh, you're just a thief. And like Gruber is like sitting on the floor and he like pivots over like all the floor and like goes right in front of her face, and he's like, I'm an awesome thief, I'm great, I'm an excellent thief. I love that part. He's so good in that because he's like sitting down,
Yeah.
right? So he doesn't like stand up, he just kind of like does this weird like crawl vault thing where he's like, I'm awesome. That's such a good performance. I love that. But yeah, they're just
It's
stealing
great.
money. And McClane is able to like get the hostages off the roof, and you have like the FBI guys. I think that one of the FBI guys is like, it's like Saigon. I think also they say like what, like once again, you know, it's the FBI, the cops, they're all bad and dumb. Like they're like, if we only have 20 to 25% like hostage casualties, that should be fine.
Like we fucking did it. Like good job, everybody.
Yeah, we did it. Good job, everybody. But the roof explodes, and I think the FBI people get killed, but no hostages are killed.
No, I love it because like John McClane, he's up there, he's on the roof, he's like, hey, like all you people, like it's gonna blow up, like get the fuck off here, and they're like, what? And then he starts shooting.
He doesn't have a shirt, and he's like shooting. Yeah,
I mean, I guess he does look kind of insane. So like, you really
he
gonna
looks
listen to the
crazy.
guy whose like feet are fucking like bleeding all over the place and just like totally. But then he starts like shooting at the sky, and of course the FBI is like, oh yeah,
Get him.
which I mean, like, to be fair, at that moment, he does look very terrorist esque. So, you know, I mean, they are completely incompetent, but you can understand why they would shoot at it. I mean, I guess, like, the hostages are also right there. So maybe, like, don't shoot him with machine guns. Like, maybe not the best move on the part of the FBI. But I'm not the FBI. So, you know, what do I know?
You probably know a little bit more than like a typical FBI agent. Anyway, yeah, they like explode, and yeah, like I said, they're gonna like run away, and they have like that ambulance, so they're like trying to pretend to be like something other than the bad guys. And
Yeah.
our favorite character Argyle, we haven't talked too much. We talked about him in the beginning, but like throughout the whole movie, while all this stuff is going on, for the most part, he has no idea what's going on. So he's like in that limo, and he's like talking to people on the phone. He's like, yeah,
Just
we're
chilling.
chilling, man. And yeah, but then he realizes halfway through what's going on, and he listens on his car radio to see what's going on. And he sees something's wrong with the ambulance, that they're the bad guys, and he's a hero. He drives his limo right into the ambulance and stops the guy. It's great. He had his own moment. It was a very small moment, but it was a very satisfying and good one. And then I think at more or less you get the final battle, more or less. Gruber has Holly, and McClane is going to get them, and he's like, okay, I won't shoot you, I'm fine, you know, like, don't shoot Holly. And you know, they're talking to him and stuff, and it's kind of funny, like that the two of them together are really good, Gruber and McClane. And they just have like good rapport, you know, whether they're in person or over the radio. It's fun to listen to them talk. It's like, you know, the cat and mouse thing. And McClane is awesome. He taped like guns on his back, so he's like, and he's able to kill his accomplice and like wound Gruber. He like grabs Holly's like watch before he falls off the building, because they're like on the 30th floor.
Yeah.
And then he's able to unlatch it, and you get of course, the classic shot where Gruber is like falling in slow motion, which is of course very classic.
Love it. Poor John McClane. Like, so much of this movie, he's like fucking about to fall off like the side of a building or like down a vent. Poor man. He's always hanging on the ledge of some sort of cliff.
That's true. When he's in the elevator shaft, and he's able to grab on to like one of those like vents, like that's crazy. I don't obviously that's unrealistic, but it's like, you know, because you would slip, like there's nothing to, but he's just like,
he's John McClane.
That's right, he's a New York City police cop. They can do anything. Gruber dies, and they're hanging outside, and they're like, wow, we did it. Holly like punches that journalist in the face, which is very satisfying. And then Carl comes out of nowhere. He's still alive, even though we saw him get like hung by his neck. And they're like, this is it, he's going to kill everyone, he's got a gun. And then Powell was able to stop him. He got out his gun and he killed him. He actually killed the person that he should have killed. He did it. He killed the right way.
I love that. That's like the redemptive like story here. Is like, don't worry, this cop, he can kill again. Like, it's okay. No worries,
He can
guys.
kill appropriately. He can kill the right person, not the wrong person now. See? So see, he did it. He did it now. They're hanging out and they leave. That's it. And it plays, of course, a Christmas song in the credits to remind you that, the movie takes place on Christmas or like on Christmas Eve.
It's a Christmas movie.
It's a Christmas movie, just to remind you real quick. And that's the movie. McClane did it. He got his girl. He saved all the hostages pretty much, except for Ellis, who got shot in the face.
Yeah, but he was an asshole, so
Yeah, and their boss, he died too, but
yeah,
that happens.
It happens.
But yeah, that's the end of the movie. They did it. They escaped.
Final thoughts and rating, Andrew?
Well, I mean, it's a fantastic movie. I mean, we talked about it for a while, of course. So it's satisfying. It's funny. Everything is well directed, well edited. There's really not much I can say about like the directing in terms of like, it's just very invisible directing. You know what I mean? I think in the commentary that I listened to, McTiernan talks a little bit about how he's like influenced by a lot of like European directors and stuff, because you get a lot of like swoop ins, you know what I mean, like kind of like a pan in on people's like faces and stuff. He said that like he's like, oh, you would never see like such a subjective shot like that in an American movie or something like that. Like, so yeah, his directing is just very like conducive to like a really interesting action movie with really good characters. All the characters are good. Like all of them are funny or interesting, even if they're small or big. Great villain, one of the greatest villains ever. Unbelievable. And the setting of the building is just like really smart, and it's executed, I think, to the best that you could possibly do it. Like, I just don't understand like what else you would do. It's just a good combination of sets and not sets, So I don't know. There's not like really like that much bad things to say. It kind of has an obnoxious reputation.
Yeah.
Which isn't really the movie's fault, but it still kind of taints it sometimes. But still, I love it. 9 out of 10.
I'm gonna be honest. When I came into this movie, look, I've wanted to see Die Hard for a long time, but I never saw it because, well, partly because of the people who love this movie.
Yeah, it has a reputation.
It has an awful reputation, so I thought it was just gonna be like a shitty action movie. But I know how much you liked it, so I was like, I'm gonna come in this with an open mind. And I was genuinely surprised by how much I really like this movie. Like, it's well written, it's well directed, the cast is great. And kind of like you said, there's really not a whole lot of complaints to be had on my end either. One of one of my biggest complaints is the guy who breaks into the safe, the guy with like the Argyle sweater and the glasses. He's supposed to be like this giant like computer hack guy, but he's like fucking typing with 2 fingers. Like, there's no way. It's the tiniest thing, but I saw it and it bothered me because just like,
some people type like that.
what? Yeah, some people, not someone who's like a professional hacker. Like, that's his whole like fucking deal, and he's typing with 2 fingers. I don't think so, sir. I don't think so. But whatever, it's fine. Honestly, though, it's great. Like, I love it. It's funny. It's endearing. John McClane is great. My only like honest complaint is I do feel it's a little long. Like, at 2 hours and 12 minutes, it feels like it drags a little in the middle. I think you could probably cut 15 to 20 minutes out, but I wouldn't say you cut out the beginning, because what's surprising is really you don't get into the action scenes until about like 30, 45 minutes into the film. But I'd argue that's all really necessary because it kind of builds like what this design looks like. I mean, we didn't talk about this that much, but when John McClane starts running through the building, he's lost, but then you as a viewer are kind of also lost. Like, you're trying to like figure out like where things are like in relation to what others. And kind of how you said, the set designs are so well built that you can kind of build this map of where everything is, and you kind of learn it as John McClane does. And I love that. I love the idea of kind of you're learning these different locations, and it is sort of like what would be called a bottleneck episode in a TV show, right? It all takes place in one building. I mean, it's a lot of different sets, and I'm sure shot in a lot of different places, but it is, I think the fact that it does all kind of take place in one building creates this constraints that kind of allow things to happen in this really natural manner. But I don't know. I just thought it dragged a little bit in the middle. I mean, even though like it couldn't point out like a specific scene, I think maybe like I don't know. I just think it could have been a little bit shorter. So I'm gonna give this film a high 7, low 8 out of 10. Because like I said, it's a real good time. It's fun. I enjoyed it the hell out of it.
You got to
So
watch Predator next.
maybe.
That's like the most that movie is also really good. I would say it's the most masculine movie ever made. The most traditionally masculine, whatever that means, movie made. It's just like the most muscle bound people ever. Also a McTiernan movie, of course,
Yeah.
which is why I mentioned it. But yeah,
All right, y'all. Thank you for listening. Next week we are going to be watching Bad Santa, the 2003 classic.
there's not a lot of options.
I mean, there are. Andrew just doesn't like Christmas movies because he's a Scrooge.
Well, I don't want to watch like a Hallmark movie. I don't want to watch like a. We already watched like an old school like
Like, yeah.
shop around the corner kind of thing, which was good. I like that. But now it's time. Now we got to watch. See, we went through all the genres if you think about it: romantic comedy, action movie, horror
Yep.
movie, and now we're
Yep.
gonna watch like a
A comedy.
like just
Like
like a straight up like
straight
nasty comedy. Yeah.
You're right, Andrew. All the more to Andrew. So next week, if you want to watch Bad Santa, it will be coming out on Christmas Day. It'll be our Christmas episode. So merry future Christmas to everyone listening.
Thank you for listening, guys.
You can find me at AustinLugo12.
You can find me on Twitter at ADHarp24. You can also add me on Letterboxd, Retro Andrew, RETR0 Andrew. Yeah, and you can listen to the show wherever you get your podcasts. And yeah, we appreciate you guys listening.
And before we go, I make sure to shout out to Shannon again. Wonderful editor, does the Lord's work, could do anything that we could never do. So thank you for listening. Thank you, Shannon. And until next week, guys.
Thanks.